I'm Jeff Cook,
And I'm TJ Wilson.
and this is Around the Circle.
I'm walking slowly, I'm taking my time. All I could talking is starting to rhyme. I'm letting go of lonely, letting go of strife. I just can't get enough of this beautiful life.
The Enneagram is a map of the human personality. It's a tool for navigating relationships. It creates language for what motivates us and helps us look at the way we look at everything else. Most importantly, the Enneagram's a mirror because sometimes you need help seeing yourself. My name's Jeff Cook. I'm a philosopher in Greeley, Colorado, and with me is TJ Wilson, businessman, lover of theology, and Enneagram ninja.
Hello.
My man, we are wrapping up our deep dive into relationships on the line.
Relationships on the line.
Talking about our stress move and the people we know who their type is our stress number.
Yeah.
These can be so helpful
Yeah.
as relationships in our lives.
Yep. Like me and my wife, 3 and 6. No, I'm a 9. Why did I say 3?
Because we're talking about 3s and 6s today. No, we're talking about 3s and 9s today, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Big idea here is that relationships that we have with people who are the type of our stress number can be incredibly valuable if they're healthy, because they know what it looks like to go high and to go low. And if they care about us and if they're healthy, they're going to help us get to that high ground.
Right.
It's also the case that we have found that a lot of romantic relationships are described by this relationship.
Mm-hmm. We know a lot of people like this.
And it also is the case that, lo and behold, a lot of siblings are on the line as well. And that can be incredibly helpful. So
Yeah.
today we're talking about the head triad. Today we're talking about the heart triad. And we're talking about their stress move, the relationship between 2s and 8s, between 3s and 9s, and the relationship between 2s and 4s. 2s! It's finally your time.
Right.
If you love a 2, you might as well just send them this podcast. We're going to spend a ton of time on 2s today.
Yeah. This is the 2 episode.
So before we jump into this, anything worth saying before we jump in?
Trying to remember if there were any like caveats or explainers that I wanted to add to make sure that we're in all 3 episodes. But if there were, I do not remember what it is now. So
We had a great conference earlier that you were part of that got
Yes.
recorded that was called Stress and Security earlier.
that's correct.
That's something worth naming.
I don't know if we've said this, but like if you know your type and you are pretty sure that your partner or sibling or business partner or whatever relationship you're thinking of is a type on the line with you, but they have not told you that, then you're guessing. So
Right.
make sure you hold that loosely.
Yeah, I think we should do a dive into how to relate to people whose types we don't know.
Sure.
I bet I've never heard anyone talk about this. I
Yeah.
bet you there's wisdom because it's the hold it loosely,
Mhm.
but this person is incredibly aggressive.
Sure. Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell them their type, but you have to always,
Yeah. You can
Respond.
respond differently. You can choose how to respond to whatever they're putting out there.
I would assume this person is aggressive and therefore they're feeling repressed. And so I should know that that's likely.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll be the whole of the episode right there. Just
Done.
assume that we talked about this.
Because really, we don't need to talk about anyone else, just the aggressive people in our lives.
With it may be a blind spot, but it's actually the withdrawn types that I'm commonly thinking this on. Is like, how do you get them into their bodies? How do you get them moving? How do you get them going?
We're tricky.
But of all things, I think it's a blind spot for me. I don't really wrestle with thinking repressed people in terms of their thinking repression,
Sure.
but I bet you that's common for you.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Wife is a 6.
Yeah.
Loser podcast partner is a 1. You don't have to shore up their thinking.
I mean, I respond to it, but it's not, I don't know that it's particularly difficult for me.
It's worth knowing.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I also have a tremendous amount of patience, so I'm here for it.
That would be something worth naming for a virtue of withdrawn types. Do 5s have a lot of patience?
No idea. Some of them do.
Yeah, that's kind of.
Some of them just, yeah,
I feel like 4s have a lot of patience. 9s have a lot of patience.
sure.
I feel like 5s just call you an idiot and kind of slink
Yeah.
take a step back again.
They don't need
At least-
patience. They're unattached.
There you go.
Yeah.
5s in my life at least call me an idiot and slink back.
All teenage
ground.
sons of yours that are
Yes.
5s.
I don't think my kid has ever called me an idiot, actually.
Not to your face, maybe.
Not to my face yet. We're going to start with the 2s and 8s
Love it.
in the heart triad. This is a romantic pairing that's very common. I think 8s and 6s, 8s and 2s. Sometimes 8s and 1s. Those are really common.
Sure.
I suppose we talked about 8s and 5s being
Mhm.
something as well. This ends up being one of the common pairings for 8s. But for 2s, I'm trying to think through 2s. 2s and 8s, 2s and 9s are common. I've seen some 2s and 1s. We'll talk about 2s and 4s in a bit. That has some dynamics. So
Yeah.
I've seen some 2s and 5s.
Sure. Yep.
But for whatever reason, I do know a handful of 2s and 8s that come to mind.
Yeah. Same.
This is a pairing that has a romantic connection because both of these types can be doers who want to feel their impact on the world.
Mm-hmm.
Both these sides have a soft side, it seems to me. That might be when the 8 goes into security.
I think it's
there
also
is-
the gooey center at the behind the crunchy shell for the 8s. A lot of 8s are sort of hiding that space, but a lot of the 8s that I know, it's more that like this is something that they're not necessarily engaging with, but they're very aware of it, and they have a high level of sort of compassion for other people, or at least the people who deserve it.
Feel like 2s want to be cared for, but have a heightened desire for authentic care.
Yeah.
And I think that's true of 8s.
Agreed.
8s are very aware of who really cares about them.
Yep.
2s will take all the love, but I feel like there's a tipping point where it's like, oh, this person really cares for me
Right. Agreed.
with 2s.
Yeah.
Because of their affect group, they both shut down their needs, act on their impulses. They are offering what they have to give in order to connect.
Right.
That was a messy little sentence there, but 12 different
We got
ideas.
there. Yeah.
That is 2s and 8s expect rejection and hold out either, that their offer of their strength or their help when they want to connect to another person.
Right.
But I do like that idea of shutting down their needs.
Mhm.
Like they both like 2s want to be loved, 8s want to be in control of their spaces. But there's a chess move. In order to get to that ground, I will shut down my needs and push hard all
Right.
my chips forward.
Right. And for 2s, it's largely about don't worry about my needs. We're here to take care of you. And the 8 is sort of I don't need anything from you. Like it's the same kind of response, but it's from very different angles.
Yep.
But both sort of not putting their own needs forward.
The 8 will say they don't need anything from you.
Mm-hmm.
It is the case that the 8, as kind of said earlier, really do want an authentic connection with another, a radar for who can be in their circle of trust.
Right.
2s are fantastic people for, in terms of their temperament for 8's circle of trust. They
Sometimes.
naturally fit.
Yeah, there is a connection there for sure. I think so long as they get to that connection place, like it, when 2s and 8s are healthy, there's a sort of very natural connection. When they're unhealthy, the 2 can often be a potentially burdensome to the 8.
True.
Because the 8 will want the 2 to do whatever it wants, and the 2 just wants the 8 to tell them what they want, and it's comes this
This
like
is-
pushing for independence, pushing for codependence kind of thing. That
This can be a special problem for 8s. I mentioned it earlier. 6s, 1s, 2s. These are very common relational, romantic relationships for 8s, and all of them can have that codependent
right,
angle.
right. Which on the healthy end can work really nicely, but unhealthy
can-
can get ugly pretty quickly.
Yeah. I suppose to push into the healthy side here, the 8 is saying to the 2, I watch you, you're amazing, trust yourself. Can be a great message for a 2.
Yeah.
Which actually pushes them not into 8 space. It might push them into 4 space, you know, in terms of if they feel like they are genuinely loved by somebody who thinks quickly, can understand what's going on, can identify their skills and what they bring to the world.
Yeah.
I imagine that would elevate some secure feelings for a 2.
Well, it also helps the thinking repression there, like 1s, 2s, and 6s. This is all a pretty common theme that like the 8 in that partnership can sort of cut through a lot of that mess.
Right.
We talk about sort of clearing out the attic and the cobwebs when we talk about what things thinking repressed types need to work on. And like you got to clear out the attic. You got to sort through some of the mess that's going on up in the brain, and the 8s that's what they do all day.
Yeah.
So they just like they cut straight through into the thing that needs to be focused on. So
Right. This to elevate 8s a little bit more here, and I imagine this is why 2s would likely really care about 8s. 8s are in my life. It's I trust their gut, you know, and when they put to language their gut about something, it shores up immediately my thinking about, you know, topic X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And it's energy I can react to. And if I know the 8 cares about me, that can be a very important relationship for me. And I imagine 2s would experience that same dynamic.
Right.
We've talked about this pairing before, the aggressive type with the reactive type, but this is a accomplishment-oriented, doing-oriented pair. And especially for 2s and 8s, they can both take on that. We are going to be providers. We are going to be caretakers. You know, it's almost like this couple is built to be more parental in their posture towards whatever the target is.
Right. And I think that there might be 2s listening who hear what we're saying and think, well, I'm not interested in the tasks. I'm interested in the relationships. But I think that where the 8 might have a to-do list, the 2 might have a for whom list.
Yep.
And they could be the exact same list.
Yeah.
Like the 8 is focused on the tasks that need to be done, and the 2 is focused on what value that those tasks bring to whoever they're for.
Yeah. There's a complementariness here in terms of one is about the people, one is about, you know, the thing, the environments, the building of the building, or the securing of the resources, or we got to move the legislation, however that works. And that can be very complementary.
Right.
It also can be the case, and I'm sure we'll get into this, the 8 can outsource all their relationships to the 2. The 2 can outsource all of their thinking and the
boundary setting and
to the 8.
Yep.
And that's not a good move.
Right.
You got to do some of that yourself.
Right.
There's a big-heartedness that characterizes both 8s and 2s at times. A lot of passion to care for other people. And this can result in both of them overworking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I imagine that we'll see that a lot with that aggressive, reactive pair, that you don't have the withdrawn element. And so
to tell you to calm down.
Yeah. So those folks can go. Those are the commonalities. And then things get very different. That's what this actually is when in romantic pairings where there's a lot of really great commonalities, and then there's a lot of mutually supportive differences.
Right.
That again, it's setting the stew. This is why this would work as a romantic pairing.
Right.
2s are going to be very open to the love of other people and inviting. 8s can have a wisdom of holding other people off at arm's length and being rather suspicious up front. Neither one of those is bad. Both of them can go a little too far, but put together, that can be a very helpful, We should love other people, but we should also be suspicious of other people.
Right. Yeah, I think that twos sort of greet the world with open arms, and they get, burned sometimes by that. And eights say, if you can get inside my arms, then you're okay there. But like that barrier exists in the first place.
There is that altruistic energy that comes from twos. There's more of a practical energy going on here with eights.
Right.
Again, and the motive is clear there, that the two longs for attention, the eight longs for agency. And though both of them want to help people, bring a lot of big-heartedness to their work, the motive for that matters.
Right.
And that's why we're going to see the separation here.
Right.
Got a lot of sweet language coming from twos. Got a lot of blunt language that can come from eights.
Yeah, blunt's a nice word.
Twos aren't all sunshine and rainbows. Twos can be manipulative in order to get things that they want when their common, tools aren't working.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And twos who are listening to this and don't know how to handle the information that we just said, it's a real thing, and many of you may not be aware of it, but it is for sure a very real thing. Guilt can be used as a weapon.
Eights generally push into open conflict.
Right. They don't want none of that tipping around it nonsense.
Don't need to be subtle about this.
No. Subtlety wastes time.
That's right. Both of these types will be angry, and especially twos in stress are going to grab hold of some of those eight tools.
Mm-hmm.
But twos' first move is to cover their anger, to be optimistic, to spin things positively. I can help you. This will be fine.
Right.
Whereas eights are going to solve conflict through anger.
Right.
And their relationship to anger is going to be interesting on this front, especially when they are paired together.
Yeah, eights bring, like, anger is sort of at the forefront with eights, and they bring it out and wield it with no qualms. Eights have no problems expressing their anger, and twos are fine with anger so long as it benefits someone they care about. Like their anger is only to be used to take care of other people.
It's a great way to put that. And that exposes, I think, perhaps a starting point for these types. Twos start with an others first kind of posture, and their anger comes out of that space.
Yeah.
Eights start with a self first posture,
Right.
and their anger comes from that space.
Yep.
Those feel like great places for this sort of couple to come into dialogue, to work through stuff. The two does need to say, we need to be less selfish, and the eight needs to be upfront and say, we need to really look out for ourselves here.
Right. And I don't want people to think that we're, I don't want to be misheard in we're saying that twos care about other people and eights are only selfish. It's that twos put other people before everything else, including themselves, and eights often put their own agency in front of everything else that they're doing, and can easily roll over other people.
Right.
And twos are often the ones that are getting rolled over because they're putting other people's needs first.
And underlying the putting other people's needs first is the deep, passionate, selfish desire to be loved by other people.
Right.
And then that underlying, sorry, twos, that underlying deep desire for reciprocated love is the engine from which the altruism comes out.
Right.
At least in average or unhealthy twos.
Right.
So a lot of us can be altruistic, when we're healthy folks.
Let's hope.
That is altruistic being you actually don't need anything from the person in front of you, but you're self-giving.
Right.
I saw a thing. I've mentioned this a handful of times. I'm really fascinated by this. Augie brought this up to me the other day. That the best posture in terms of loving other people actually are postures where they gain and you gain. If you consistently are entering spaces where you lose and they gain, that's super unhealthy.
Right.
If you enter places where you gain and they lose, that's how thieves function.
Right.
if you're a moron, if you have like the worst kinds of people are those who actually do damage to themselves and damage to the people in front of them.
Right.
So there's kind of like a quadrant going on here, but the posture of I gain, you gain, this is how we navigate the world. Augie went off on the logic of that, and I was like,
Sure, yeah.
I'm super fascinated by this right now. But
We want a win-win-win scenario.
I bring it up here because that might be one of the temptations, the 8 saying it's all me, not them, and the 2 saying it's all them, not me.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of those are actually the place you should get. It's how is it the case that we're thinking of win-win on this front?
Right.
How does the person in front of me benefit, and how do I benefit? That's actually the best. That takes a lot of creativity and passion and energy and thoughtfulness. But
Right.
anyway, just to circle back to it, it can't be overemphasized that one of these types, the 2, is in the heart center, and the 8 is in the body center. Right. And so the seeing the world through relationships is heavy in terms of how 2s observe the world, see the world, experience the world. And 8s do not experience the world through relationships.
Right.
It's all about boundaries, control, environments, spaces, and feeling good in them.
Yeah.
I wanted to hit the sins real quick, sins and fixations at the end, because especially in terms of romantic relationships or sibling relationships, like this will be, like the breakdown here might be one that really, that's why.
Sure.
Things kind of flare. So the pride for 2s and the lust for 8s is, do you see places where that's going to create a problem?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because the pride of wanting other people to love me by taking care of them, like that sense of pushing into other people's lives. I mean, when you do that with someone who isn't interested in being taken care of in that way, then like you're gonna be like, I could really see this easily being trying many times to get a different outcome by doing the same things. Like this is like you can easily be hitting a ball against this wall and expecting it to go through and always returning to you.
Right.
As a 2, because the 8 doesn't necessarily need something from you from their perspective, you know? And then lust being about consumption and fullness and the way that 8 sort of approach life. Like when what you want is the things that you want and you want them now, and you're going to come at the world to get the things that you want, like that sort of that posture on the 2 side that says we actually need to take care of other people. This can really come in conflict, because what if taking care of other people stops me from getting what I want? Mm-hmm. Then it becomes a real problem for me. And yeah, there's, especially when these types are unhealthy and unaware of these issues, these can be really problematic for both of them and for the people around them.
The fixations are flattery and vengeance. I so want to jump right to the list of characters I have from movies based on your answer there. I'm like, that's exactly how this plays out. 2s being in their unhealthy mental place, fixated on flattery of wanting to be told over, fixating, how do I get the attention of others, or even weaponizing flattery themselves to like giving compliments to get them.
And worse, especially when paired with an 8, flattery is not just about compliments. Flattery is a veil of compliments. It's not real stuff. Like the back and forth of flattery that 2s are engaged in this place is all surface level to maintain the relationship without actually like getting into the depth of what is underneath to do the real thing of connection.
Right.
Like flattery is about, oh, you helped me with this thing, now we're best friends. When what's real there is, you did this thing for me, end of story. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like we don't have a real relationship just because this thing exists. And so that that flattery kind of like false promise. I know that I came up with I heard a word for what I'm trying to describe about the sort of shallow connection of flattery. But it is very much this surface level maintaining of a relationship based on like things that don't actually create real connection.
Flattery is flat.
Yeah.
It's I think that's worthwhile.
And
That's a
contrast that with the 8s who are not interested in any kind of connection that isn't real.
Right.
What a waste of time that is.
I suppose one of the benefits to being an 8, 8s will push here to see if it's real.
Yep.
And the coarse joking, the allowing your anger to go too far. These in part are 8s trying to see if the person in front of them actually is legit.
Right.
And so it may be the case that they do push. Some 2s and 8s don't necessarily connect. At this point, I imagine that's a place that you could see those relationships breaking.
Right.
On the opposite end, where flattery is about like I really, 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 really want to connect, the 8's fixation is vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
It's nearly the opposite, sort of posture of mind.
I want to stand on the pile of your ashes.
Right. There is I don't care about your compliments. I want to pound you into sand.
Yeah.
Very different postures when it comes to if it's the case that your mental life goes to those dark places.
Right.
In pop culture, I had a few, and we'll see if these hold. But my first, I thought the most obvious one was Wall-E and Eve in the fantastic Pixar animated film Wall-E.
Right.
Wall-E is just helping people the whole
Yep.
time. Like
Yeah.
this
Love that.
entire function wants to be loved, creates relationships with cockroaches.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, he loves that cockroach too. It's great.
Finally gets to connect with another robot, and just immediately, this is my person.
Desperately wants to impress her and make her notice him. Yeah.
Eve is all defensiveness
Mhm.
and will blow you apart.
She's
if
got
you
a
get
job to do.
closer. That's right. I need to rewatch this film. I saw it so long ago, but the characters, like the archetype of the characters, is just clearly in my head.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not a stretch because everybody should have seen this,
Ooh.
and if you haven't,
Spoilers.
What's that?
Be careful.
I
I haven't yet.
You haven't seen The Last of Us?
I've only watched the first 2 episodes because I know what is contained in the third one, and I can't watch it at work, and I have a toddler at home. I have not been able to watch the third one yet. So be careful.
Okay, well, I won't spoil Last of Us. Last of Us is a post-apocalyptic kind of zombie show that HBO released. But there's a single kind of standoff episode with 2 characters, one of whom is kind of a what would you call those folks that survivalist. He's he's a survivalist.
A prepper? Is he a prepper?
Yes.
Yeah.
And apparently, he
Yeah.
he put
all
all
of
of
the
his
prep
chips.
when the zombie apocalypse comes, all of the preppers are going to be like, "Yeah, told you so, dicks."
That's right. He put all his chips on 28, and lo and behold, 28 came up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a thing.
So the 8-ness comes out in that character in that way, in
Yeah.
a prepper way. But the true, I really want somebody who can share my space that I can trust, and I only want one.
Mhm.
Is all over this character.
Yeah.
And as it stands, a 2 stumbles into his life.
Yeah.
And it's a ridiculously beautiful little one-off story in the midst of this series on zombies. They aren't the main characters. They just decided to kind of a story,
Elevate
within
the story a
world.
little bit. Yeah.
So Bill and Frank, I think, are fantastic as a 8-2 pairing.
And,
Lots of
if you haven't seen it yet, which I have not, part of why I haven't is because one of my friends who is not a movie crier said he cried harder than he's ever cried at a television show during that one episode.
Yeah,
so
wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
There's some stuff there in terms of just what does it look like to care about somebody romantically
Mhm.
that gets exposed through that story better than anything I think I've ever seen.
Sure.
I mean, there's it's up there with some of the great films.
Yeah.
So really well worth finding. So just put special emphasis on it. The survivalist side is all about your spaces and being protected.
Mhm.
And then the two that enters is all about the relationships and how do we engage other human beings when there's a zombie apocalypse. We need to think about this. We can't just hunker down in the basement and watch the world through cameras,
Right.
Sort and television screens.
Right.
Last one, and maybe this is a little bit more pop culture-y, is it seems to me Dirty Dancing exposes a 2 and an 8.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny and Baby seem to me a good 2-8 pairing.
No one puts baby in a corner.
That's right. Defensive. And one of the reasons that nobody puts Baby in a corner is because she has value
Yeah.
and has things to contribute to the world, and her strengths have been seen, honored, and are being elevated by the 8 who's going to get in your face because you're not looking out for this person that I've connected to.
Right.
Showcase her strength on stage.
Yeah. And baby will let you put her in a corner
It's true.
because
She was in
she wants to maintain the relationship.
she was clearly in the corner in that scene, which is why it needed to be addressed. In terms of family relationships, I got 2. I so want to do Pulp Fiction someday. Someday on the Movie Typing Podcast,
Someday.
we'll do some Tarantino.
Someday.
But Vincent Vega and Jules Winfield, I think, are a great example of a 2-8 relationship.
Sure.
A lot of Travolta's energy, if you go there with me for a second, he is very reactive, and relationally aware.
Sure.
I mean, everything for him is relationships, it seems.
Yeah.
And he's responding to Jules' energy, which, I mean, it's Samuel L. Jackson. You got some aggressive anger going on there.
He brings some 8 energy to the table.
might be a thing.
Yeah.
If you go there, I mean, they are, as we are kind of saying, this pairing, especially when it's brothers here, they're going to be effective at doing their job.
Right. Right.
This is a pairing you put in charge of doing the jobs you need done.
Yeah. And an interesting look at like how they approach the job from different perspectives and what they bring to it for the other.
Mm-hmm.
Like Travolta is much more interested in like who this is for, like the work that they're doing, who it's for, and why it's important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And the 8 is just tell me where to point my gun. Tell me who I need to intimidate. I'll do what needs to get done, but I don't care about how important it is.
Lots of power dynamics going on
Uh-huh.
in Jules Winfield's dialogues. Lots of the conversation that they're having. I'll forget the name of the character, but it's like Rocky Horror. It's a Rocky something horror. I'm getting this confused with a 1970s film.
What are you talking about?
The conversation that they have very early on is about how their boss had put another gentleman in charge of looking after his wife, but he ended up giving her a foot massage because the wife asked for the foot massage.
Sure.
Well, boss came home and threw the man off of his balcony to his death.
Naturally.
And so the Travolta is really interested in the relational aspect of this, it seems to me.
Right.
And then when he is told that he needs to care for his boss's wife to take her out, show her a good time, he is a servant, he is a lover, he is having a very difficult time finding his place in the world.
Right.
When she starts coming on to him.
Yeah.
Because
Understanding
he might get thrown off the balcony.
boundaries and yeah.
Anyway, if you're 2 and you haven't seen Pulp Fiction, it's worth going down that road. Another one, because it's the case that 2s and 8s often get, it appears that the 8 is the leader and the 2 is reacting. This next one's really helpful, and it's to go back to our Godfather deep dive, because Vito Corleone is a 2 and his son, Sonny, is an 8. And there, the power dynamics is shifted.
Yeah.
And you see a very different kind of relationship between 2s and 8s. And in the few scenes that they have together, it can be really powerful.
Right. Yeah, it's a great example of like a 2 recognizing the value of the energy being brought by the 8, but also the necessity to learn how to tame that energy.
Yeah. Yep.
And not just because I need to use you, but if you're going to take over for me, this is how you need to learn this for your own sake.
Real interesting in that the 2 in this situation has real leverage.
Mm-hmm.
They know that they're worthy of respect. They know they're powerful. The 8 knows they're powerful.
Yep.
The 8 knows they're worthy of respect. And the 8 is actually deferential
Right.
because of that.
Yeah.
You know, boundaries are set. The 8 never feels like they're vulnerable
Right.
in the presence of their father. Real helpful.
Yeah.
In a relationship, what else do you see here as the thing that makes these sorts of relationships work?
Well, I think there's, like, we talked a lot about the sort of outsourcing that 8s often do of their feelings and the relational connections, and I think that, like, particularly thinking about 2s being in relationship with 8s, there's so much to see there from the 2, to see someone who is not only willing to stand up for themselves, but knows how to show other people how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the example setting of being able to set boundaries, being able to say no, being like, just the fact of being able to say no is a great thing that 2s get to learn and see modeled from 8s. And to learn how to do it in a way that's not, because the 2 moves to 8 in stress and in unhealth, that is when, like, the really negative stuff can come out there, and 2s kind of move from being caring and deferential and giving into a space where they're, you know, a little bit more like a bear. And I think being in relationship with an 8, when there's health involved, the 2 really gets an opportunity to see how to do this in a much more normal kind of way, to not let it just be a negative stress response. It's like, oh, you can actually learn how to say no, and that is a very valuable thing for 2s, and to just let that be the something that you commonly practice. You can also learn, like, seeing the 8 model that sort of, like, self-concern gives the 2 an opportunity to practice caring about themselves, to know what they want, and to go after the things that they want instead of always putting other people first.
Yeah.
And I think that like, in that relationship, the 8 will, a healthy person paired with a 2 will actually sort of require that from the 2, because they will not carry the 2 for their entire relationship.
Right. Yeah. I suppose the thing that goes through my head is twofold on this. This is one of those relationships that feels like if you have shared ends, like you're involved in the same sorts of endeavors, that can be helpful here.
Mm-hmm.
That you're both bringing something to the table, because what's going to end up happening is the complementariness is going to be exposed. The 8 will see the real strengths that the 2 brings to the table.
Yep.
You know, and I think the strengths of 8s are a little bit more out front, and you can see them, and they're being implemented.
Mm-hmm.
The strengths of 2s often come out, you know, in the midst of battle, as it were. You know, so we haven't mentioned this yet, but like, the nursing profession strikes me as one that's just filled with 8s and 2s.
Sure.
And one of the things that, like, the hidden strengths of 2s comes out in my mind and heart in places like that, where like gory stuff is taking place, and the 2 is just navigating those waters.
Sure.
Like, with this, like, I can't do that. This freaking me out, makes me disgusted. I can't engage those sorts of elements. And you just got 2s who are, you know,
just in it. Yeah.
what is that? A wound filled with maggots? I got that. It's sort of, it's kind of just like you have superpowers, and it feels like eights come into contact with things like that and then appreciate it. See, again, Dirty Dancing. I feel like that's where the connection comes out. It's like the Johnny character. What's his bucket? What is that actor's name?
Kevin Bacon.
Swayze.
Yeah. Kevin Bacon's the other one. Footloose.
Swayze gets put into a spot where he's like, this little woman has legitimate toughness and skill and passion to bring, and then there's an awakening. Anyway, it doesn't have to be the case that you're doing a common project, as it were, and maybe just building a family can be that sort of thing in a romantic relationship. But a lot of our lists have that dynamic of we're doing something together.
Right.
That's the thing I see in terms of our last questions. What do eights gain from healthy twos? The eights are going to see what it looks like for themselves to not feel vulnerable, and what do they look like in security. And a lot of times it looks like I'm really going to help people who are in trouble.
Yeah. And I think to a higher degree, I'm going to consider someone else's needs, and even more so outside of what I think is good for them. Because eights can often be very helpful for turning other people into what they think they should be, into what the eight thinks they should be. And twos, good, healthy twos, are offering help from a much more altruistic place that considers what the other person needs, not what the two thinks they need. Like the two is able to anticipate in those ways and sort of fill those gaps. And so when eights are paired with healthy twos, they can start to see that, like, considering it from the other person's perspective is something that the eight needs to develop,
right,
to make sure that they're not just imposing their will on the world around them.
On the flip side, and we mentioned it a couple times, it feels like twos need some personal boundaries, and they can get that at eight space.
Yep.
Using those eight tools for twos often looks like, as you said, it's the mama bear raises up and gets a little aggressive about their feeling like they're taken advantage of, or saying, this is the line. Eights who live in that space can be incredibly helpful in terms of talking to the two, because they will not be thinking repressed, and they can say, of course you should create boundaries. That person's being a jerk.
Right.
They can call BS on
Stop
people.
helping them.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Stop helping them.
And even more so, I think one thing that eights really bring to the table, especially healthy eights that are in that pairing with twos, is that the eights aren't really concerned with whether other people like them. Like I don't think that there are eights who literally just like flat out do not care about other people, but I think that eights are not attached to whether other people like them or not.
Right. Yeah.
And that is something that is really valuable for a two to see modeled in healthy
There
ways.
you go. You have permission to not care about that person's feelings.
Yep.
Or
doesn't matter.
Not their feelings, but their take on you, their opinion of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
doesn't mean you have to be mean to them,
Yeah.
but you don't need to care what they think about you.
that's it.
Yeah.
Bang. All right. Good word. Well, we're moving around the circle. Talk about the threes. Threes move to 9 in stress. I don't know that this is a common pairing, but they out there. Both threes and nines, when they're in romantic relationships or when they're, siblings, it seems to me they both value being a part of something big.
Yeah.
That may not be obvious on
Agreed.
the nines, but as we've said in the past, nines want their presence to matter, and oftentimes that takes place in corporate spaces.
Right.
We talked about that with nines and sixes also, and with threes and sixes. These types just seem to thrive more than other types in corporate environments. Corporate, I mean,
Well, I think
bodies.
we've talked about this with I believe it's affect, that these are space creators, that the 3, 6s, and 9s are creating space for the things that they're looking out for autonomy, security, and attention. And 3s and 9s they want to be part of something big, and they do that by creating space, by creating atmospheres, by building a presence, a community. For 3s of excellence, of the thing that they are building is something that's great, that other people will see and other people will say how great it is and want to be a part of. And 9s are creating a sense of home and comfort and peace, and like this space is a space where we can all be connected together. And obviously 6s about safety and security and connection and fidelity, loyalty to each other. And like all 3 of those things are about a community, a space, a group, something that we can all be a part of.
Yep. What's interesting to me here is when some types have a protective instinct that's really high. So like 1s, my dad's a self-protective 1. My dad decides to be a triathlete, which means he leaves the house for 12 hours to train and then comes back.
Sure.
TJ's self-protective 9 has a high self-protective instinct. Sean Palmer, our friend, who's a 3, has probably a high self-protective instinct. Both of their gigs are creating environments for other people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so these types, 3, 6s, and 9s, even when self-protective, I find that interesting. You don't have to be social or even sexual subtype. Those that have high self-protective instincts still want to be part of things that are big.
Right.
And are self-protective in those environments, but they want to be part of the environments.
Right.
The other thing that hits me with 3s and 9s is that they are emotional and hide their emotions. It seems for different reasons, 9s will not always give you their full emotional self, and 3s, for very different reasons, will also not let you know what their full emotional experience is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not mad. It's fine.
I felt like I was setting you up for like a crushing baseball on that one. And you're like, yeah,
I mean,
move on.
It's very true. Like 3s are detached. They don't engage their feeling center appropriately. So like they take in the world through what other people are feeling. They can read the emotions of the room very easily, and they know what to become so that other people think they're great, and they have to be able to read people to know what other people want to see as wildly successful in their spaces. And but they don't engage their own feelings. They don't engage with other people's feelings as far as how the 3's behavior affects them. They just move forward to do the thing that will seem most successful. And I think that they can be very good at performing emotions to be as successful, to appear appropriate and successful. And like if it's a funeral, I'm going to make sure that I can perform the appropriate emotions, but I'm not necessarily feeling them. And then 9s, like we want to maintain stasis. We don't want to rock the boat. And my feelings coming forward might rock the boat. So I'm going to process them separately by myself. It might be all happening underneath the surface, but we don't want other people to see that, because that might rock the boat, you know?
That's it. How 3s and 9s deal with their emotion perhaps goes deeper, is that it seems to me both 3s and 9s want to be valued by others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the underlying motive there. 9s aren't attention seekers like 3s, but they don't want disconnection.
Right.
And I suppose this pushes into another commonality, that both 3s and 9s tend to be the ones de-escalating tension in a group.
Sure.
They both have different goals. 9s tend to be much more focused on the corporate, on us, whereas 3s often are de-escalating because we need to get over there.
Right. Because the conflict is messy and it looks bad, and
yeah,
we could all be doing something great instead.
Yeah. You guys are embarrassing. we could be winning.
Yeah.
Which I suppose pushes back into why these types really thrive in corporate spaces. Somebody needs to calm everybody down, remind us what we're all in this for, and those can be really helpful skills. Lots of difference here, though. This is, again, an aggressive type. 3s and 9s are withdrawn type. And so this is what we've been calling that yin-yang pairing, that that the energy is all movement or all stasis. Not all, but, I mean, the preference for is at work here.
I think this is part of why we also don't see as many sort of like our experience is that the 3-9 is less common romantically, and I think this is a big part of it. Is that energy it can be complementary, but it can also be really difficult to maintain a connection for long periods of time when you have these opposite energies.
Right. Yeah. Just don't. Yeah. It's really, I think it's the threes I can't see pairing very cleanly or often with 4s, 5s, and 9s. Everybody can fall in love with another type,
of course,
and make things work. So, but it's not as common.
Yeah.
The drivenness of 3s and the easygoingness of 9s, if in relationship, that will just be that is not a problem to solve. That is going to be a tension to manage.
Yep.
And oftentimes it seems to me what's going to happen is actually the 3 is the one that's probably going to go to where the 9 is. Because if it's a healthy relationship in particular, the 9 is going to create that atmosphere of rest that 3s, when they get off stage, retreat to.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose that's what I see in my head as being the most common in a romantic pairing.
Sure. I think that's true, but there's also a real value of like healthy 9s recognizing the need to get up and go, and it's a lot easier when there's someone in front of you forging that path, you know?
Yep. I'm trying to think of what that would look like. I could see that in spurts.
Mm-hmm. And that's I think a big part of what we would normally see with 3s and 9s as sort of partners is not necessarily romantic, but like Kelly and I get along really, really, really well. And I think if we even lived together, we would need a lot more time apart.
I think that's what I'm seeing also. It's the time apart is what really kind of goes through my head with this pairing in romance. If this pairing is working together, it's very different.
Sure.
Because then you have corporate rules and structures, and here's your role in the group going on. And they're like, I see you and Kelly working commonly together, and then the energy makes sense.
Right.
In romance, it's different.
Yep.
You know? And so, I mean, I suppose it's the case. I could see the 3 having goals and ambitions that they are saying to the 9, this is very important to me. I want you to come and do this thing with me.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it would be in spurts because the 3 is going to want to live there for the most part. Right.
Unless the 9 just merges with a 3, and then you have a whole host of other problems. So.
Yeah. There you go. And we talked about that in terms of some romantic pairings just need space. So especially the idealists, when 1s, 4s, and 7s are in combination, it's probably very good for them to create lots of space for themselves to do their own thing.
Right.
And that might just be true of these types.
And I think good, healthy people, 3s and 9s paired together, you just recognize that as part of your reality. And I think healthy 3s and 9s wouldn't have a problem with saying it or hearing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey, I know you need a nap today. I'm going to go do 17 things. Cool, good. That sounds exhausting. I'll see you later.
Right.
You know?
You're amazing. I'd never do that.
Yeah. You want to run a marathon? No. You want to run a half marathon? Maybe next year.
Can you cheer for the 3? Can you tell them how amazing they are?
Oh, yeah.
Heck yeah. In their cheer. There you go. That's the tone.
Yeah. I'll bring some orange slices.
One of the places that it could be a place of tension, but it probably is a very complementary space, would be that the 3 solves problems with their head and the 9's going to solve problems with optimism. And that can be very helpful.
Sure.
Too much optimism actually doesn't get the job done. The 3 needs to say, no, here's the problem and this is what we need to do. But so too, if it's all head and if there's no energy of optimism, goals can begin to be tough to access.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's also like something that we talk about with you and me often is that I think 3s can sometimes solve problems that aren't problems.
Sure.
And a lot of that stuff, it works and it's great. And sometimes energy is spent on things that don't need to be fixed just because the 3 thinks that somebody else will see it and think badly of them. I think the 9s bring that to the table as well. Is that the optimism is not just about let's sort of gloss over the problem, but there can often be a real good radar on what problems need to be solved and what problems don't. This
Right.
will resolve itself. Let's not spend energy on that.
Especially when the goal is we need to impress other people. When the goal is we need to accomplish this important task for the sake of our family or our business or whatever.
True. Yeah.
It seems like
Yeah.
then it should be that 9 can get drawn into, yes, I should probably care about those sorts of things. When it's you just want to look good, that's
Right.
not a worthy goal.
Right. And even like the complementary nature of it is that the 3's going to set the 3's going to say, we need to care about this thing. And the 9's going to say, okay, great. Tell me what to do. And the 3's going to hand them the list that they've already created because they've been thinking about this for 4 days anyway, and show them the things that the 9 has to get done on that list. And the 9 will say, awesome, a list. I will go do these things right now because I know exactly what to do and I don't have to prioritize it.
That is a good funnel. That's future problem solving for the 3, and it's present problem solving for the 9. Pushes into the stance of the 9. Or no, what would that do? That would push into your intelligence area. You're receiving something. You're receiving a list about what needs done.
Yeah, we don't, 9s don't engage, don't do productive doing. So when someone that we care about shows us exactly what needs to be done and when, man, we can be all over that when we don't have to try and prioritize or figure out what needs to be done. Like that, here is a list of exactly what I want you to do. Man, I'm all over that.
Right. I suppose this pushes into the repression here. The 3s are going to be feeling repressed and 9's action repressed. And 3s do a great job of, I don't care how you feel about what you're going to do. Here's the things that need accomplished.
Right.
If they're not accomplished, that's fine. I'm detaching from you.
Right.
Because you're not getting done the things that are vital to me.
Right.
Whereas on the 9 front, yeah, this is if the balance works, there's an invitation to get into your body, or 3s can offer that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think that the 9 can be more aware of something that it's harder for a lot of other types to see and appropriately accomplish with 3s, is sort of like skipping over the parts that aren't important but somehow making it look like you did all of those things. So like a very acute example, one of the tricks of being a good audio engineer is making the person on stage think that you're doing what they're asking. So like, I need more of me in the monitors. Cool, great. I'm just going to move my hand to the place where it looks like that and say, is that better? And the person will go, yes, because they don't know what they're actually hearing. They're just sort of responding to what they think is going on. And like that's the reality of a lot of good engineers, is that we'll make it look like we did exactly what you're asking for, and you will perceive it that way. And as a good engineer, I know what it should actually sound like. So I just need to make you happy. And I think that dynamic with threes can really, threes will be pushing for this list of like, here are the things that we need to accomplish to be successful, to look successful, to get through this thing that we need to do. And the 9 can offer a sort of like an approach of like, yes, I will do all of those things, and secretly I'm only going to do the ones that are actually important. But it still appeases the need of the 3 to feel like all of those things got done, you know?
What happens when the person on stage says, no, I can't hear myself?
Then you actually turn it up. That's
Okay.
fine. Yeah. Yeah. But it's often the case that they just need to feel like they are hearing themselves better.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Especially bass players.
Who are often 9s. It's
Yeah.
the energy between the 9 audio engineer and the 9 bass player. This is good times.
Yeah. It's all just trickery. We're just
Does it-
tricking the other person into thinking.
Are you saying that the bass player asks for more bass and
Oh, yeah.
it's all the time?
Constantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Want their presence to matter.
Yeah.
What
They
if
think
you-
the bass is... Okay, this is a huge generalization, but a lot of the bass players that I've worked with in my life, they think the bass is the most important thing, and they really need to hear themselves, when really, like, if you got it to the level that they were expecting, that's the only thing that anyone would hear.
Apparently bass overwhelms.
Yeah.
How the 3 and the 9 relate to other people comes out a lot in their types here. In terms of like the threes can get competitive. In fact, that's a primary, whereas 9s merge.
Right. Well, and there's also a sense of like matching the energy, like raising to the level of the energy, but not necessarily doing it the same way. Like, I love to spur people on in competition, but I'm not myself that competitive.
Mm-hmm.
But and when I say spur people on, like, I like activating the competitiveness in other people and like pushing it, but I don't care about the competitiveness myself.
Sure. The trophy isn't the thing.
Yeah, the trophy is I don't care about. I do love seeing like my friends who do care about the trophy. I like seeing them lose.
Right.
So
The thing.
I like to push the competitiveness, but
What's interesting here is that that doesn't flare up as your motive, but your rice bowl is your motive. Your sense of this is my space, what I care about, where I want to dwell.
right.
If it's the case that a competitor moves into the neighborhood, you don't actually go to 3 necessarily. You'll go to 6. Yeah.
Sure.
A competitor moves into the neighborhood with a similar product. If you're a business person, it's more the fear, not the ambitious. I need to do better than them. I
Sure.
imagine would come into play.
Yeah.
There's the showy side of 3s and the self-effacing side of 9s.
Mm-hmm.
Even the seeking of attention versus avoiding of attention. That's kind of the I have a list in my head that kind of goes down this path, but it's all like, how do we engage others?
Yeah.
Especially on stage.
Yeah.
This is kind of case in point. The fact that you choose to be a sound engineer is case in point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The sound,
I don't want to be on that stage.
it's the position that's part of the band whose presence
Yeah.
matters,
Yep.
who is invisible, who's in the back of the room. Nobody ever sees this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm standing behind everyone else. I love that spot.
Whereas the 3 wants the microphone.
Right.
And that can be, notice, that can be a great complementary relationship. It can, but in romantic relationship, that creates a dynamic that's, I suppose, is interesting. It's like, what do you do with that? So,
Well, and like thinking about that in the sense of like average to unhealthy partners, 3s and 9s, could easily devolve into a one-way roundabout of attention. Like the 3 constantly seeking after attention from other people as well as from the 9, and the 9 constantly losing out on attention because it's all going to the 3,
Sure. Yeah.
that could become a real problem.
Right.
Because then the 9 just disappears and feels like they're not a part of things, and that their presence doesn't matter. And the 3 is getting all of the attention that even should be, some of which should even be going to the 9.
Of all things, as you're saying that, in a romantic relationship, I could see one exception to this, and it's when kids are involved. Kids will, I bet, often gravitate to 9s who create foundations of calm
Sure.
and actually have more, this isn't like every 3-9 relationship with kids, but I imagine it's the case that kids will know that the 9 is a place of calm and stability, as it were. Whereas 3s will be pushing goals, will be pushing movement, will be saying, let's do this. The family needs to get going. Turning to the 9 saying, you need to tell them to do the thing.
Mm-hmm. and the 9 going, they'll figure it out.
It's true. The pop culture images that we've got, we typed Bruce Banner and Romanoff. What's her first name? Agent Romanoff. Natasha.
Yeah.
Natasha Romanoff is a 3 and Banner is a 9. They have a romantic fling that doesn't
for a hot minute
stick.
Yeah.
But there is understanding there. There's a place of valuing of the other. It takes place in what is that? Age of Ultron is when that takes place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that there's a good example of the 3 sort of using their ability to draw attention to elevate the 9.
Yeah.
Particularly thinking about the conversation that they have
It's good.
at the bar of the
that's
9 sort of sideways describing what's happening between the 2 of them, and the 3 saying, go for it. I'm right here. Go for it.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I suppose to jump into the MCU, the Banner's relationship with Stark would also be a 3-9 kind of brotherhood taking place there.
Yeah. And again, the 3 trying to elevate the 9, the even the things about the 9 that the 9 is really struggling with,
right,
is saying, own it, own who you are, 100% of who you are, and let's do some crazy things together.
We've talked in the past in our deep dive, which is at movie typing. We talked about how Banner merges with Stark's terrible ideas at times.
Yep.
Stark has a lot of care for Banner, and Stark doesn't have a lot of care for anybody.
Right.
Right. I mean, for his wife and maybe for his parents. I don't know that's loving other people isn't the first thing that jumps in my mind and heart, I suppose.
Well, and just seeing the way that he talks to most people.
Yeah.
There's a way that he sort of engages the world that holds people at a distance.
That's a fair way to put it. Yeah.
And you can tell when he approaches Banner, that he genuinely is moving toward Banner in a way that he's not with a lot of other people.
That's a better way to put it. Banner creates a very safe space for him to be him.
Mm-hmm.
Stark has no problem being on.
He knows he's not going to compete with Banner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if the competition were to come, even if they were to enter into a place where they are competing, I think that Stark recognizes that Banner's competition can only make Stark better. And I don't see him seeing that with other people.
Right. I suppose the only competition really is in disagreements. Should we move forward? Should we stay here? Is the dynamic of them talking through Ultron stuff.
Yep.
So I just read a biography on Abe Lincoln, who I absolutely think is historically a 1. One of my favorite movies in the world is Lincoln by Steven Spielberg, and that man is absolutely a 9 in that movie. Daniel Day-Lewis, and his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, is played by Sally Fields. I think is a great example of a 3. I think Mary Todd Lincoln is very likely a 3. She is all ambition, and Lincoln wouldn't run for president if she wasn't saying, you could be president. You could be president.
Sure.
Like, and so that dynamic is there. But I think you can see it in that movie.
Yeah.
I
believe you. I still have not seen Lincoln
That's fantastic.
because I'm a fool.
Also, a relationship that didn't last. Too soon?
No, definitely not. It hasn't been too soon for like 100 years.
That was one of my favorite Oscar jokes. Like when Lincoln was up for the awards in the the Oscars, I think it was Seth Meyers that got up and told like a Lincoln shot joke, and everybody goes, "Oh!" and he goes, "What? Too soon?" And it was such a great follow-up joke. Such a great follow-up joke.
Love it.
All the Disney Enneagram people that are out there, they typed Jasmine as a 9, and Aladdin sure looks 3-ish in terms of his wishes.
I cannot even a little bit get on board with either one of those typings.
Oh yeah,
No way.
I don't know that.
No way.
I
that
saw this
Jasmine's
movie
a
when I
9.
was like 4.
That's whoever said that. Oh, okay. I have not seen the quote unquote live action remake, and I'm not interested in seeing it. So if that is part of this consideration, I can't comment on it. But if we're only talking about the cartoon, there's no way that Jasmine's a 9, and there's no way that Aladdin's a 3.
Perfect. We can scratch that one off the list.
Yep.
What's Aladdin?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it, but no way he's a 3.
Wishes to be seen as a prince?
Exclusively for the purpose of getting close to Jasmine.
Not for, yeah, okay. That works. The only other one I had, and this would be on the brothers side of thing, I think it could be the case that Princess Bride, you could have Inigo Montoya and Fensick as a 3-9 combination. Inigo Montoya is motivated by vengeance. However, what was my argument here? I had an argument all in my head. Can't remember my argument.
And he is pretty showy. Like it's not just that he's motivated by vengeance; it's that he became one of the best swordsmen in the world in order to find the person. And it's not even vengeance. He doesn't just want to kill the 6-fingered man. He wants to confront and show off to the 6-fingered man.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's a relational motive here.
Yeah.
He is deceptive in dueling him left-handed. Does that work?
Yeah.
All this feels like a stretch now. Fitzik feels like a 9. Like he's fighting.
I'll take that. Fezzik
you know,
is a 9. Yeah.
He's fighting the man in black and wants him to feel like he's doing well in the fight. And
Yep. And like his fighting does not come from a place of anger. It comes from a place of he is a giant.
Right. Still enters those spaces. It's not. This may be one of those 9-2 mistypes as well, but it feels like he wants his presence to matter. He's going into those spaces where he it's almost like a uniquely fits, but it's a very physical way of being in the world.
Sure.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. All of these.
But also he's a giant.
Also he's a giant. That's right. I mean, I could see some giants being, I don't know, like 5-ish. They go.
Sure. Retreat. Yeah.
Yeah, and study things and Beast in X-Men.
Sure. Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. Anyway, we hit a lot of this. To anything we're saying in terms of what 3s gain from healthy 9s?
Yeah, I think there's thinking about the relationship between 3s and 9s, like looking at 3s in relationship with a 9, modeling how they do stress. I think stress is a really difficult place for 3s to encounter because they want to seem successful. They want to be seen as praiseworthy. They want to embody excellence and to get the praise for being excellent. And so that move to 9 is like stress is not a good thing, like especially when it causes some kind of retreat. That stepping back, the stepping away, like you're not in the spotlight anymore if you're stepping away from it, and especially if it's because something stressed you out, it means you failed, and that leaving can be a really unpleasant and unhealthy experience for 3s. But I think when threes are in relationship with healthy nines, that the modeling there of resting is not a bad thing. Saying no to some things is not a bad thing. Saying no with a pocket veto is not a bad thing. It's okay to step away from all of the things that you're doing sometimes. And it's okay to not be the center. It's okay to let other people drive the bus every once in a while. And like I think there's a really valuable modeling that threes have a hard time imagining, because that sort of like maintaining the peace space that nines embody is so it's not antithetical to the kind of aggressive ambition that threes bring to the table, but it can seem that way. And so when threes have a nine in their life, have someone that they're really close to that's just like living there, I think that can be a really great way of seeing that Sunday afternoons are all about laying on the couch and not actually doing anything. I think that can be really valuable for threes.
Yeah, on top of that, they need somebody to celebrate the fact that they're laying on the couch.
Right.
And nines will be fantastic at saying, of course, this is the best possible thing we could be doing today.
Yep. Man, the amount of energy that I have spent in my life encouraging people to drop out of college is just tremendous. It's laughable how often I tell people that college is dumb and they should get out.
Even when getting off stage, which threes need to do, moving into nine space, as was said, you need to carve out your space. Like when you use nine tools, you will carve out spaces like nines do and say, this is my space of comfort. The three still need somebody to say that this is praiseworthy.
Yep. Yeah.
I think nines also help threes with their anger in stress. Threes will have a difficult time in some points in stress when other people are an issue, making it their responsibility.
Sure.
In nine space, threes can get that, this is not my job, you need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of energy that you might see from a nine who's
Yeah.
easily going to say, this isn't my job.
Yep. Whereas the nine is like, we didn't realize it could be our job in the first place.
Right. And I suppose just to circle back around, how much success is too much? Nines are not going to be motivated necessarily by that metric.
Right.
And will have more perspective to offer there. It does feel like, just as I keep thinking about the romantic pairing, that I would expect that this couple should expect to have, space from one another.
Right.
Be a common element of their relationship.
Recognize that tension and learn how to live with it. Yeah.
Yeah. But when coming together, it can be very valuable.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I suppose the three is obviously gonna be an encourager for action in the life of a nine.
Yep.
Drive, goal setting, to-do lists.
Yep. Absolutely. Pushing and it's very easy for a nine to become content in nothing ever changing, because if there's no change, there's no conflict. It's great. Mm-hmm. But we need three energy to help us move and grow, because like not ever changing is stagnation.
Yep.
And there's a necessary, like, life will force you to move or die. And the three energy of saying, like, there are spaces where we can't just be complacent. We can't be content never changing these things. Mm-hmm. And that is a necessary thing that nines get when they attach themselves to three.
Yep. Yeah. That's good. Bang. All right. Next one. Last pairing. The last of our 9 relationships on the lines is 2s and 4s.
Yep.
This is a very emotional pairing.
Yes.
It is the only one that both of the participants are in the heart triad together, and that's probably why. Gonna value feelings, the 2s and 4s.
Yep.
Probably gonna value openness.
Yeah.
Openness gonna value companionship.
Yes.
and the connection. I suppose when I think of openness, it's the being open to the connecting points in that space.
Sure. Yeah.
I imagine both 2s and 4s can dialogue at a very high level about not only the relationships they share with other people, but with their own relationship with one another.
Right. Yeah, there's the connectedness, like this is how they see the world is through their feelings and the feelings of other people, and the relationships that they've made, the relationships they want, and talking about the quality of those relationships, and not necessarily like the details of like things and stuff and like what we're doing, but like how, like, what does it feel like when I'm with this other person? That these two types are going to be most interested in that kind of dialogue.
I suppose lastly, it seems to me they would both have a high value of intimacy itself and a real radar for the quality of gifts that others give to them.
Mm-hmm. Not necessarily material, but
yeah. And so if you have two healthy people who are focused on the other at those levels, they can give very quality offerings to one another.
Yeah. I think that they also have the opportunity to have that go both internally and externally, like especially when they're paired together.
Yeah.
Because the 4 is going to have a much easier time focusing internally on those topics, and the 2 is going to have a much easier time focusing externally on those topics. Mm-hmm. And when they come together, they can sort of push the other in that direction.
Yep. Lots of differences, even though they're in the heart triad. Everything else seems to be very different with these two types.
Yep.
The two most obvious 2s are, as we said with 8s, 2s are going to be others focused. 4s are going to be traditionally self-focused.
Right.
At least as their starting points.
Right. They're both taking in the world through relationships, feelings, how other people perceive them, but the 2 uses that to figure out how to connect to other people, and the 4 uses that to figure out how they feel about themselves.
Yep. Yeah. 2s are rescuers, can be rescuers.
Oh yeah.
4s can desire rescuing.
Right.
The want to be found by the people.
Right.
2s commonly will put forward a posture of wanting to understand, even though underlying that is, I want some reciprocation. The posture to understand is commonly there with 2s, whereas the posture of needing to be understood commonly there with 4s.
Right. I think that's that taps into their stance in big ways as well, because the 2 being thinking repressed, their desire is wrapped around the fact that they don't know how to productively think about things. What is mine to do? What do people actually feel about me, etc. And the 4 being in that withdrawn stance is much more focused on the past, and so that wanting to bring all things forward to clearly, to accurately communicate what's on the inside. Like they want to be seen and understood, not necessarily to understand in the way that 2s need.
My favorite pairing in this list is that 2s experience a superior feeling of pride and 4s experience an inferior feeling of envy.
Right.
That pairing just makes me smile.
Well, I think the line there is also really interesting, because 2s, that superior feeling of pride is also tempered with that sense of flattery. So they will underplay their pride oftentimes and sort of hide it behind this false modesty, whereas 4s can often hide their sense of inferiority with this false projection of superiority, in the sense of like the fact that I'm not like you sets me apart and makes me not deserving what you have, but the fact that I'm apart means that I'm better than you.
Mhm.
Like I'm on the outside while you sheep are like not necessarily sheep, but like that the way that their line sort of plays into each other can sort of force the inverse of whether or not they think they're awesome, you know?
Yeah. A lot of the movement, it just feels like the 4 is moving in a direction,
Mm-hmm.
and the 2 is chasing. Is just with as I'm looking through the rest of this list, it just is commonly the way that the dynamic of this relationship is going to go.
Sure.
With action repressed types, you don't necessarily, in my mind, I don't necessarily think of them as the leader, but 4s are commonly the leader when they're in relationship with reactive types.
Sure.
Because maybe not with 1s. 1s and 4s are going to have a different kind of relationship, but certainly when 4s are paired with 6s, when 4s are paired with 2s, there is something like the 4 wants to be seen, the 2 wants to see, and so that the flow of energy is moving that way.
Right.
The flow of energy is real interesting to me because there's some pairings. I'm thinking of 8s and 1s for a hot minute. The flow of energy between 8s and 1s is interesting. 8s express anger outwardly.
Mm-hmm.
1s express anger inwardly.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have an 8 and a 1 in relationship, that anger is twofold. You know, it's multiplied because the 1 is self-condemning and the 8 is condemning the 1, say, and it's just like, it's just twofold. And that's how that feels here.
Sure.
In terms of attention. The 4's attention going inward and the 2's attention for the 4. And it's like multiplied.
Sort of being multiplied, yeah. I get that.
The way that the 2 come to difficulties, opposite. Optimistic for the 2s. Here's the difficulty. Let's spin it optimistically. The 4 commonly can, at their best, can verbally depict the difficulty and all of their horrors.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. And the 2, it's not just an optimistic outlook, but it's a what problem we can solve this. I can solve this problem for you, or like there's things to do to manage this, so it's not a problem. Like these difficulties, like that, like they might just ignore the problem and go bake a casserole, or they might, like, instead of dealing with the intense grief feelings, they'll just like cook for someone, like that like there's something to do instead of being weighted down by whatever difficulty is happening.
Right.
And the 4 wants to be weighted down. They want to be in the depths of whatever difficulty is going on, and so it's almost like a stopping of movement to be often too attached to being within that difficulty and experiencing the emotional space of that.
I suppose the last one is that 4 is very aware of their inner emotions and feelings, and it seems like 2s can be blind to their emotions and feelings.
Yeah, and this ties back to that first difference is that the 4s are self-focused and 2s are others-focused.
Yeah.
2s are not concerned with their own wants and needs because they're putting their energy into taking care of other people, so that when they do have wants and needs, other people will take care of them. And 4s are not thinking about other people's wants and needs because they need to figure out their own first.
Right. Got a couple of romantic pairings. I don't know if these totally work and didn't do the deep dive, but on the face of it, they seem to shout out to me that this is the dynamic of these relationships. The first is Forrest Gump and Jenny. The beauty that needs to be rescued is all over Jenny.
Sure.
And she is very commonly very concerned with her own interior self. One of the scenes has her naked on a stage singing songs from her heart. And I suppose in my mind that kind of depicts, it embodies what I think is going on in a 4, is
Sure.
how they see themselves.
Sure.
And of course, too, Forrest is a rescuer.
Right.
And we type, actually, in our intro to movie typing, we did a dive into Forrest Gump and a lot
Put
of
him
his
as a
2
2.
qualities.
Great. Love that.
Ginny is also different because she's the only person on that bus that befriends Forrest Gump.
Right.
Another one I had.
And also like the reason that she does, like the reason that she's the only one who befriends him is because all of the other kids are jerks who see this dummy and don't want to be friends with this loser because he's an idiot.
Yeah.
And she sees the beauty in the human person in front of her and says, we can be friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
This next one's going to be real interesting. I think the MCU depiction of Peter Parker and Mary Jane, I think, is a 2-4 relationship, especially in that first Spider-Man movie.
Sure. Yeah.
She's all for in that movie.
Yeah.
And the way that Spider-Man works, and he's always going to help all the other people out there. And it brings real tension to the romantic relationship he has.
Yeah.
Because he's not actually always rescuing MJ.
Right.
He's often sacrificing MJ's time with MJ to go save everybody else.
Like a fool.
Sometimes the world needs saving. But that dynamic, that might be an element to a romantic relationship between 2s and 4s, where if the 2 decides I'm going to help all these other people, there might be a lot of energy, a lot of chemistry, a lot of romantic fire up front with 2s and 4s.
Yeah.
And then the 2 pivots.
Right.
Last one I had was Wesley and Buttercup. Man, I'm doubling down on what's her bucket? This actress, the actress who played Buttercup and Jenny.
Oh yeah. Robin Wright.
Yeah. I don't know if she's a 4, but
Formerly Robin Wright Penn.
lots of internal focus by Buttercup and how she's feeling about the world and all the things.
Sure.
Lots of romantic idealism.
And I think Buttercup is a good, like, I don't think she's a great, healthy princess,
Sure.
Like there's a lot of these princess stories where it's like this damsel that just needs to be rescued, or even the like getting into some of the like more like not necessarily the damsel being rescued, but being extricated from a dangerous situation and she can take care of herself kind of stuff, like Princess Fiona in Shrek. But Buttercup, I think, is a very selfish person.
Hot take.
Yeah. And I think we see that over and over again. And the way that she is like, she's only really concerned about her own emotional well-being.
Yeah.
And even the act of sacrificing herself for to make sure that Wesley is alive. Like, she'll marry Prince Humperdinck so long as he doesn't kill Wesley.
Right.
It's like that's not a self-sacrificial move. Like, basically she's saying you can have what you want. It's just so dramatic of a scenario.
Her dreaming about a woman coming at her yelling boo is dramatic.
Yeah. Yes.
I think that's a fun couple. It's all, I mean, notice just all the energy, the emotional energy in all 3 of those relationships is going to be a huge part of those stories.
Yep.
Not so when you get into brotherhoods or siblingships. We have, in our Star Wars deep dive, which is on Movie Typing, you should go check it out. We typed Han Solo as a 4, typed Chewbacca as a 2. This ends up actually being a great pairing.
Mm-hmm. I think this is actually partners is easier to manage for these types than romantic engagement. Mm-hmm. Any type can be paired with any other type. It has so much more to do with the health of the individuals involved than it does with type. Like, that's just the truth of the Enneagram. But 2s and 4s romantically, it's like you were talking about that flow of energy, and 4s want a reciprocal thing, especially in a really close partnership like that. But if you if you're brothers, like if you already have that connection and you can be doing something else together, maintaining that relationship isn't the point of the relationship.
Right. That's it.
And I think there can be a lot more natural sort of like being together, and it doesn't draw out the same kinds of qualities in each other.
Mm-hmm. There's a scene in the first Star Wars where Luke tries to put handcuffs on Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Who says, "You're not going to take advantage of me," gets real angry. Han steps in and essentially puts the handcuffs on him, but says, "Don't worry, pal. I think I know what he has in mind." But behind that is, I see you.
Yeah.
In your value. Like Chewbacca's here to help until you take advantage of him. Right. But the four that can turn to their, to their partner, to somebody that they're co-laboring with and saying, "I see you. I see what's going on here."
Yeah.
Is can be really valuable in those settings.
Yeah. And you can trust me.
Yeah.
Like they don't have to establish trust. Whereas I think if they were a romantic pair, there would still be a sense of like needing to, because then the relationship is the point.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It's a great line. I see this. The people that are going through my head this whole time that I've been thinking about 2s and 4s are folks who work at your coffee shop, because that's actually the place that I imagine 2s and 4s finding each other and just loving life. Because that's the place that they can talk about relationships, and that's the place they're doing the work, right? But the work really isn't the point, as it were. The point is, I want to be in spaces that are very relational in orientation. One of my friends that I watched this person's social media routinely taking pictures of herself and her friends in her coffee shop, at the coffee shop she works at. And she's a 2. And I'm just imagining that would just be a magnet place for those sorts of folks. Anyway.
Right.
Builds on this. I'm bringing up Hamlet again. I think Hamlet's a great example of a 4, but Hamlet has a partner in arms, Horatio, who just is there to help him. I mean, that's just his function in the story, to hear all of Hamlet's, navel gazing, brooding about death and meaning and the death of his father and all these things. But the Hamlet Horatio energy, it's just there. It's just all, Hamlet is this huge vortex for all the energy of that whole piece. It's not necessarily bad, but even at the end, it's, "I am dead, Horatio. Let me tell you, I've been killed. I'm going to say, can you help me?" And guess what? Horatio's there
That's what he's there for.
To send him off. And then, of course, Thor and Loki are a 2-4 pairing, but we don't need to go into that.
Well, they're not, so it's fine.
What did 2s gain from healthy 4s?
Well, I think navel gazing is a good thing a good word to have there. I think that 2s are naturally not very good at thinking about themselves. And when 2s are paired with a healthy 4, they get to see that it's okay to think about themselves. And not only okay, but actually the world is a better place when you are somewhat aware of what's going on inside of you. And bringing the fullness of yourself to the forefront, as opposed to always serving other people. I think that's one really big thing. The need to serve others doesn't have to be. It's good for you to be helpful, and also it's good for you to take care of yourself. And like one of the things that 2s get in both directions is a sense of self-focus that they don't have on their own.
That's the thing that goes through my mind. It's commonly said, 2s don't have an anchor in the head triad at all.
Right.
And 7s don't have an anchor in the heart triad. 2s have to get into their head only through stress and security. Those are the tools they got. And so insecurity, from 4s are going to be able to feel their thoughts and create a vocabulary for thinking, especially about their inner life.
Right.
Another thing, I don't know that this works, but it's similar to the 3-9 dynamic, Is it not the case that 4s can tell 2s to mellow out in the same way that 9s tell 3s to mellow out? You have a withdrawn type of 4, and the 2s are going to find a lot of their value by their actions for others.
Mm-hmm.
4s may be able to speak into that and say, let's go over here and rest.
Yeah, and also like coming back to that funeral analogy, like, yeah, it's good to make them a casserole, but also what we need to do is just sit in the terribleness of this grief. Like, the thing that is most valuable for your friend who you're trying to help is for you to just be here.
It's perfect. What do 4s gain from 2s?
So 4s move to stress and in that 2 space, and when 4s and 2s are paired together, when they have closeness of relationship, that 4s can see what it's like at 2. I think that there's a lot of great examples of how to stop focusing on yourself, how to think about others and the effect that life has on other people. And like yes, everything that's broken is beautiful by virtue of being broken, and also it can be fixed sometimes, and maybe you have work to do to be part of fixing things. And there's so what help can you offer other people as opposed to just thinking about your own feelings? How do you get out of yourself? How do you get into your body and like into the world and start serving? Like that, this is one of the best ways to get out of ruts, is to start helping other people. And I think that like that's where 2s live. And when 4s find themselves in these stressful places, I think they can get really good examples of like what it looks like to start moving beyond themselves.
It's a good word. As you were talking, I don't think I've thought about this, that the sins of all the withdrawn types are really repelled by getting into your body and acting.
Mm-hmm.
So for 9s, getting past sloth, it's get into your body. Yep. You know, for 5s, getting past greed, the hoarding of their own energy, get into your body.
Yeah.
And for 4s, getting out of envy might mean getting into your body and doing things, and not just meditating on what you don't have or what you aren't, as it were.
Well, and even like doubling down on that specific concept, like one of the best ways to stop being envious of another person is to get yourself into a place where you can see where that person is struggling. Like, the grass is always greener on the other side. And when you go over to the other side, you'll recognize how green your grass was from the perspective of the other side. Like, people are broken all over the place. And if you are envious about what that person has that is making that you lack, that is making your life miserable, go to the other place, spend time with the other person, and you'll start to realize that they actually don't have all of the things that you think, and they're broken in a lot of ways too.
I had the exact opposite reaction, and it's the advice I'm sure 4s hate to hear, which is, well, you should just get ahead. You envy this person, well, engage your body, do the thing that gets you the thing that you want.
No.
Why are you sitting there?
Nope. That won't help.
TJ's advice, I'm sure, is much more palatable.
Well, and particularly thinking about the stress place.
Yeah.
Like in that stress movement.
Oh, sure.
Recognizing like your envy can be severely counteracted by equanimity, as it were, by recognizing that other people are also broken.
That's a good call. It's a good call. That's what I got. We did it. This is a much longer set of podcasts than I was imagining.
Yeah. I think my wife would say, well, duh. It's always longer than you think it's going to be.
She never says it to me, though.
Oh, no. She would never say that to you.
No. Joni Wilson is a woman of class and self-restraint.
Correct.
Among many other things. The last word on relationships on the line?
I can hear people making comments about whether or not we're advocating for finding someone who is on the line. And I want to firmly state that we are not doing anything even remotely prescriptive about what type of person you should be in relationship with. That is not a real thing that can be born out of the Enneagram. But if you do find yourself in relationship, a sibling, a close partner, like a romantic partner, if you are in a relationship with someone who shares a line with you, there's a lot of value that can be found. And I really hope that this has, and this obviously is not comprehensive. This is not the full list of things about being in a relationship with someone on the line, but I hope that you and your partner, however that looks, are able to like see some of these things and talk about those dynamics and really get to places where you can share a lot of this stuff. This has been so helpful for Joni and I, being a 9 and a 6, sharing that line. We can see each other better and we can see ourselves better because we talk about the things that we share on the line. So
that's a great word. I hadn't thought about that in terms of just how do you think of relational advice? And I think that's spot on. A lot of the things that we discover as we go through this list is that the natural chemistry takes over. Your type, it takes over. The best advice that I've heard recently, I'm obviously in a long-term relationship, but for the thing that I would say to my kids wanting to get into a relationship is if you are looking for a romantic partner, maximize your opportunities. The more that you are out of your house and involved with groups of people, the more you maximize your opportunity for having sparks hit, because your type and their type will naturally connect. Kind of as we've said, like all the types end up having real connection with some of the other types, and eventually you'll hit that one person who you're physically attracted to. Your types have a certain way that they function together. Your emotional health is probably in a similar spot, and that's it seems to me that's generally how romance is born.
Sure.
Go care about some stuff.
Yeah.
Go be a good person and get out of the house. I think that's how you find romantic partners. Hard to find romantic partners when you're at home. Except for me, my romantic partner's at my house right now. So.
Yeah, but if you were there for much longer than 10 minutes, she wouldn't be anymore. She's got stuff to do, man.
Friends, it would mean the world to us if you shared this episode with somebody you love, preferably somebody that you know you're in relationship with in these patterns. This could be an incredibly helpful place to talk about your inner life with people that you care about. We continue to meet once a month online. If you want to connect with us, go to aroundthecircle.org, click events, and you'll see that there are places that just say this are online gatherings. We have 2 other fantastic, I dare say fantastic, podcast feeds.
One I've heard that they're 5-star ratings.
The people who rate them, perfect.
Yeah.
The Yugoslavian judge gave us a 5.
Yeah.
The Swedish
all 7
judge,
of the people who have rated those 5 stars
landed that triple backflip and boom. First is called Start Here. It's an Enneagram podcast. It's our tool for typing folks. If you have folks in your life who really want to get into the Enneagram, we have created a podcast for them to discover what their type is, and we think it's pretty swell. Our other one is called Movie Typing. It's also an Enneagram podcast. In it, we have about 40 episodes in which we do deep dive into popular characters, and what we're doing there is just trying to showcase the inner life of the types through characters whose lives we love and apparently spend billions of dollars annually as a planet wanting to watch. So it's a good place to go. And as always, if you're one of the 1,000 listeners that we have that hasn't given us some stars, apparently there's only 8 that have done movie typing right now. We would love some stars, and reviews are always, always, always appreciated. So, you got anything else, TJ?
I got nothing, man.
He's TJ Wilson. He's officially awesome. I'm Jeff Cook, and who you aren't is not interesting.